When people hear the word intimacy, the first thought that comes to mind is usually physical closeness. But the truth is, intimacy is built long before the body is ever involved. At its very core, intimacy is about connection, and communication is the strongest, most lasting foundation for it. Women beg for men who can occupy this position, not because they want endless conversations or dramatic heart-to-hearts, but because they want to feel seen, understood, and valued. A woman can have everything else. A man with ambition, financial stability, and even physical attraction. But if she cannot communicate with him in a way that makes her feel heard, she will always feel that something is missing. The position of communication is not about talking more. It is about listening better. Too often men mistake hearing for listening. Hearing is passive. It is simply the act of letting words enter your ears. Listening is active. It requires attention, patience, and empathy. Women long for men who listen with their whole being, who notice not just the words spoken, but the silences between them, who can sense when a smile is hiding pain or when a sigh carries a story. This kind of listening creates safety, and safety is the root of intimacy. Communication is also about openness. Many men are raised to keep their emotions locked away, to believe that strength means silence. But silence builds walls, and women do not beg for walls, they beg for bridges. They want a man who can share his thoughts without fear of being judged, a man who can say what he feels and invite her into his inner world. This openness creates a cycle. When he opens up, she feels trusted, and when she feels trusted, she opens up even more. The relationship then evolves from two individuals speaking at each other into two souls communicating with each other. There is also the matter of presence. Being present in communication means giving undivided attention. In today's world, where distractions pull us in every direction, presence is rare and therefore precious. Imagine a man who puts down his phone when she speaks, who looks into her eyes without checking the clock, who nods not because he's waiting for his turn to respond, but because he genuinely wants to understand. That presence speaks louder than any grand gesture could. It tells her that, in that moment, nothing is more important than her voice. Communication as intimacy is not only about words, but also about how those words are delivered. Tone, timing, and patience all matter. Women beg for men who can control their reactions, who can speak with kindness even in conflict, who know that shouting shuts doors while calm words open them. A man who communicates with respect creates a sanctuary in which a woman feels safe to be herself. Without that safety, even love begins to feel like a battlefield. Another dimension of communication is curiosity. Women want men who ask questions, not because they are interrogating, but because they are genuinely interested. They crave the position of being with someone who wants to know their dreams, fears, and hidden passions. A man who asks, "What makes you happy?" or "What do you need right now?" is offering more than words. He is offering attention, and attention is one of the purest forms of love. What men often do not realize is that communication is not just about solving problems. Too many times, men jump straight into offering solutions when all a woman wants is for her feelings to be acknowledged. Sometimes she does not need an answer, she needs an ear. Sometimes she does not want to be fixed, she wants to be understood. Women beg for men who can hold that space, who can listen without rushing to close the conversation, who can sit with discomfort and allow emotions to flow naturally. The reason communication is the ultimate intimacy is because it creates a connection that cannot be faked. You can buy gifts, you can show up with flowers, you can plan expensive dinners, but none of that will matter if you do not know how to communicate. A woman can forget the words you said, but she will never forget the way you made her feel when you listened, when you validated her emotions, when you made her believe that her voice had power. In the end, communication is the position that transforms love from a fleeting emotion into a lasting bond. It is the invisible thread that ties two hearts together, the bridge that keeps them connected even when life gets heavy. Women beg for this position not because it is rare, but because it is often overlooked, ignored, or undervalued. Yet, when a man chooses to step into it, he discovers that communication is not just talk. It is the deepest form of touch, one that reaches the soul before the body ever does. When we think of leadership in relationships, most people automatically imagine control, authority, or the ability to dominate. But true leadership, the kind women beg for and respect, is not about force, it is about emotional intelligence. Emotional leadership is the position of guiding with care, of being steady when storms come, of creating an atmosphere where she feels safe enough to be herself. While many men believe physical dominance is what attracts and keeps a woman close, what she truly longs for is a man who can lead her heart, not just her body. Emotional leadership begins with self-control. A man who cannot lead himself cannot lead anyone else. Women crave men who can manage their tempers, regulate their emotions, and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. This doesn't mean never feeling anger or frustration, but it does mean being able to channel those emotions productively. A man who lashes out, withdraws, or sulks when things go wrong is not offering leadership. He is creating instability. On the other hand, a man who stays calm in conflict and shows her through his example how to handle challenges communicates strength on a deeper level than muscles ever could. Another aspect of emotional leadership is direction. Women do not beg for men who control every detail of their lives, but they do long for men with vision. A vision that says, I know where I'm going and I want you to come with me. That kind of leadership is not about commanding, it is about inspiring. When a man lives with purpose and clarity, he becomes someone she can trust to guide the relationship. He doesn't have to have all the answers, but his willingness to keep moving forward with determination provides a sense of security that no physical dominance can match. Consistency also plays a critical role in emotional leadership. A leader does not show up only when it's convenient. He shows up when it's hard. Women beg for men who do not disappear emotionally when life becomes heavy. They want men who can remain dependable, who can keep their promises, and who can reassure them even in uncertainty. When a man says he will be there and follows through, he becomes more than just a partner. He becomes an anchor. Emotional leadership is about being that steady anchor, proving through actions that she is not alone no matter what. Emotional leadership also involves empathy. This is the ability to step into her shoes and understand what she feels without judgment. Too many men dismiss women's emotions as unnecessary, dramatic, or irrational. But emotional leadership requires validation, the act of saying, I may not fully understand, but I hear you, and your feelings matter. Women beg for men who can do this because it makes them feel cherished and respected. It allows them to trust more deeply, to open themselves without fear of being dismissed or belittled. Another key part of emotional leadership is setting the tone in moments of conflict. Every relationship faces disagreements, but how those disagreements are handled can either strengthen the bond or weaken it. A man who uses physical dominance, intimidation, or silence as weapons is not leading. He is controlling. Leadership in conflict means guiding the conversation towards resolution, keeping the focus on understanding instead of winning. It means lowering his voice instead of raising it, and showing patience instead of pride. Women beg for this kind of leadership because it transforms conflict into growth instead of destruction. Presence is also vital to emotional leadership. Leading emotionally means showing up fully, not halfway. It means listening with focus, speaking with intention, and being attentive to the little details that matter. When a man pays attention, when he notices her moods, when he asks questions that reveal genuine care, he is leading in a way that makes her feel seen. Presence says, you are important enough for me to pause everything else and be here with you. That is leadership that creates intimacy, not distance. True emotional leadership is also about balance. It is about being strong enough to support her, yet soft enough to be supported by her when needed. Many men mistake vulnerability as weakness, but in reality, it is a form of leadership. When a man can admit his struggles, express his feelings, and invite her into his world, he is not burdening her. He is showing her that trust runs both ways. Women beg for men who can lead with honesty rather than pride, who can say, I need help, without feeling less of a man. That kind of leadership draws her closer because it is real, authentic, and human. Physical dominance may capture attention for a moment, but emotional leadership captures hearts for a lifetime. It is the position that women secretly desire but rarely experience. It is not about control, but about guidance. Not about force, but about influence. It is the quiet strength that says, I can carry myself, and I can also help carry us. Emotional leadership is the kind of leadership that turns love into a safe haven instead of a battlefield. And that is why it matters so much more than physical dominance. In the beginning of most relationships, there is often excitement, grand gestures, and a sense of thrill that feels unstoppable. Men chase with energy, plan surprises, and put in an effort that makes a woman feel like the most important person in the world. But over time, the energy fades for many. They stop doing the small things that once came naturally, and they assume that because they have won her heart, the work is complete. Yet what women beg for, more than the temporary rush of surprises, is the steady rhythm of consistency. It is not the one-time act of romance that makes her feel secure. It is the daily proof that she is still chosen, still valued, and still worth the effort. Consistency is powerful because it builds trust. A woman who knows she can rely on you is a woman who can relax into the relationship without fear. Surprises may create excitement for a moment, but consistency creates safety for a lifetime. When a man shows up in small ways every single day, through his words, his actions, and his presence. He communicates far more love than a sudden, grand gesture ever could. Women crave that kind of stability because it tells them the relationship is not just alive, but thriving. Consistency is not about perfection. It does not mean you must always have the right answers, always be in the best mood, or always do everything flawlessly. Instead, it is about showing up even when it is hard, even when you are tired, even when life becomes stressful. Many men underestimate how attractive reliability is, but for women, a knowing that they can depend on a man day after day builds a foundation that no luxury gift or one-time surprise can replace. Another reason consistency matters so much is because it speaks of commitment. Anyone can surprise you once, but not everyone can stay committed enough to repeat the small, meaningful actions daily. Sending a good morning message, checking in during the day, remembering the details of her life, following through on promises. These actions may not seem big in the moment, but over time they create a powerful story of devotion. Women beg for this consistency because it proves she is not just part of the chase, she is part of the choice. Consistency also fuels emotional intimacy. Every time you show up as you say you will, you are showing her that she matters. You are proving that her heart is not being taken for granted. Women often fall out of love not because the passion dies, but because they no longer feel prioritized. A consistent man eliminates that fear by constantly reassuring her through his effort. He does not leave her wondering. He does not keep her questioning his intentions. And he does not make her feel as though she has to beg for his attention. Men often confuse surprises with romance, but romance lives in the ordinary moments repeated with care. Holding her hand every time you walk together, giving her your attention when she speaks, or simply showing up when you promised. These small acts add up in ways that mean more than one big surprise ever could. Women beg for this not because they dislike surprises, but because they know surprises without consistency are hollow. A man who plans one grand gesture but fails to be present daily creates confusion rather than security. Another reason consistency is sexier than surprises is because it builds anticipation. When a woman knows she can count on her partner to show up every day, any extra gesture becomes even more meaningful. The surprise no longer carries the weight of proving love. It simply enhances the love already proven through consistency. Without that steady base, surprises often feel like attempts to make up for absence. With consistency, surprises become gifts rather than apologies. Consistency is also a reflection of character. It shows discipline, integrity, and a strong sense of responsibility. Women beg for this not just for the sake of the relationship, but also because it reveals the kind of man you are in all areas of life. A man who is consistent in love is often consistent in work, friendships, and personal growth. That reliability makes him not only desirable but deeply respected. It is one thing to win her love, but it is another to prove through consistency that you are worthy of keeping it. Even in conflict, consistency plays a role. A man who consistently chooses respect, who consistently works toward resolution instead of blame, shows leadership and maturity. Women feel safer expressing their emotions when they know their partner will respond with steadiness rather than volatility. That stability is attractive in ways that physical appearance or fleeting gestures can never match. The truth is, surprises fade, but consistency leaves a legacy. It creates memories not through single extraordinary events, but through ordinary moments done with extraordinary love. It is in the repeated kiss before leaving the house, the effort to check in even on busy days, the pattern of keeping promises. These are the things women beg for, the things that make them feel cherished long after the early spark fades. Consistency is not glamorous at first glance, but it is the very thing that makes love last when the initial excitement dies down. It is sexier than surprises because it shows real devotion, and devotion is what women crave most. For generations, men have been taught that vulnerability is a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. They are told to keep emotions locked away, to remain stoic, to never cry, and to always appear strong. But what women beg for is not a man who hides behind a mask of toughness. They long for a man who is real, open, and unafraid to reveal his humanity. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is one of the greatest strengths a man can show. It is the key that unlocks true intimacy, the bridge that turns companionship into partnership, and the foundation upon which trust is built. Vulnerability means being willing to show the parts of yourself that are not polished, not perfect, and not always in control. Women do not beg for flawless men. They beg for men who are genuine. A man who can say, "I am struggling," or "I am afraid" is not showing weakness, he is showing courage. It takes far more strength to be authentic than to pretend. When a man hides his emotions, he creates distance. But when he chooses to share them, he creates connection. One of the reasons vulnerability is so powerful is because it makes love feel real. When a man only shows his strength, she may admire him, but she cannot fully know him. She only sees the surface. But when he allows her to see his insecurities, his fears, and his hopes, she sees the whole person. Women beg for that kind of openness because it allows them to feel trusted. And when a woman feels trusted, she responds with trust in return, deepening the relationship in ways that cannot be achieved through physical attraction alone. Vulnerability is also a form of leadership. Many men believe leadership is about having all the answers, but emotional leadership is about being honest when you don't. It is about admitting when you need support, when you've made mistakes, or when you are unsure of the next step. Far from weakening the bond, this honesty strengthens it. Women do not lose respect for men who are vulnerable, they respect them more. Vulnerability proves that a man is confident enough in himself to be real, and that kind of confidence is irresistible. At its core, vulnerability is an invitation. It invites her into your world, into your struggles and your triumphs, into the deeper layers of your soul. Without vulnerability, intimacy remains shallow. You may laugh together, you may even share a bed, but you will never truly connect because the deepest parts of you remain hidden. Women beg for men who can lower the guard, who can let them in, who can say, "This is who I am, even when I'm not strong." That is what makes a relationship unbreakable. Another reason vulnerability matters is because it creates emotional safety. When a man shows that it is okay to express feelings, it gives her permission to do the same. She no longer has to fear being called too emotional or too sensitive. Instead, she feels encouraged to share her heart without judgment. Vulnerability becomes contagious. It builds an environment where both partners feel free to be authentic. That kind of safety cannot be fake. It only comes when both people are brave enough to let their walls down. Vulnerability also strengthens resilience. Life is full of challenges: loss, failure, stress, and uncertainty. A man who hides his struggles may seem strong in the moment, but inside he is carrying a weight that grows heavier over time. A man who shares his struggles, however, finds support, comfort, and encouragement from the woman beside him. Women beg for vulnerability not because they want to see men weak, but because they want to walk beside them in strength. They want to be part of the journey, not spectators locked outside the walls he builds. What men often misunderstand is that vulnerability does not erase masculinity. It redefines it. Being masculine does not mean being cold or unfeeling. True masculinity includes the ability to embrace emotions, to show tenderness, and to express love openly. A man who can be vulnerable is a man who is in control of himself, not controlled by fear of judgment. That kind of strength is magnetic. Women beg for vulnerability because it is the doorway to intimacy. They do not want a perfect man. They want a real one. They do not crave endless displays of toughness. They crave the honesty that comes with openness. Vulnerability allows a man to be both strong and soft, both protector and partner, both resilient and real. It is in those moments of raw truth, when the mask is removed and the soul is revealed, that love becomes its most powerful form. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Phones buzz with endless notifications, work demands constant attention, and the mind is always racing ahead to the next task. Yet what women beg for more than anything is a man who knows how to be present. Presence is not just about being physically in the same room. It is about being fully engaged in the moment, body, mind, and soul. It is about creating a space where she feels like nothing else matters but her. Presence is rare because so few men understand its power, but for women, it is the gift that makes them feel truly valued. When a man is present, he communicates without words that she is a priority. A woman can instantly sense when a man's mind is somewhere else. When he is scrolling on his phone while she talks, when his eyes wander instead of meeting hers, when his responses are half-hearted because his thoughts are occupied. These small signals may seem harmless, but over time they make her feel invisible. Presence, on the other hand, makes her feel cherished. When he listens deeply, looks into her eyes, and gives her his undivided attention, she feels like the only person in his world. That feeling is powerful because it validates her worth in ways grand gestures never can. Presence is also about emotional availability. A man can be physically beside her, yet emotionally absent. Women beg for presence not just in the form of time spent together, but in the quality of that time. They long for conversations where they are not rushed, for moments of silence that feel comfortable, for laughter that is shared without distraction. Emotional presence means being attuned to her needs, noticing when something is wrong without her having to spell it out, and offering support that feels genuine rather than obligatory. It is this emotional attentiveness that creates intimacy far deeper than physical touch. What makes presence so rare is that it requires discipline. It is easier to check the phone than to focus, easier to multitask than to give undivided attention, easier to assume you already know what she's going to say rather than listen fully. But true presence demands sacrifice. The sacrifice of distractions, the sacrifice of ego, the sacrifice of always being in control. Women beg for this sacrifice because it shows effort, and effort is what keeps love alive. Presence also speaks to reliability. When a man shows up consistently and wholeheartedly, he creates a sense of stability that women crave. It tells her she can count on him not just to be around, but to be there. In difficult moments, presence is even more important than words. A woman facing stress, grief, or fear does not always need solutions. Sometimes she just needs him to sit with her, to hold her hand, to let her know she is not alone. That silent presence often says more than any speech ever could. Another dimension of presence is mindfulness. Being mindful means not letting the past or future dominate the moment, but choosing to focus on what is happening right now. Women beg for men who can live in the present, because it is in the present that love truly grows. Replaying old mistakes or worrying constantly about the future steals the joy of the now. A man who can put aside regret and anxiety to fully experience the moment with her creates memories that last. It might be a simple walk together, cooking dinner side by side, or sitting quietly after a long day. But when he is truly present, even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. Presence is also about attentiveness to details. It means remembering what she said last week, noticing her mood when she walks into a room, or paying attention to the little things that make her smile. Women beg for this not because they need constant validation, but because it shows genuine care. When a man remembers her favorite song, her unspoken needs, or the way she likes her coffee, he is saying, "I see you, I know you." That recognition builds a bond stronger than any gift could provide. Perhaps the most important aspect of presence is its ability to create intimacy. Physical intimacy without presence feels empty. But when presence is added, even a touch of the hand becomes meaningful. Presence turns time into connection, and connection into love. It is why women beg for it more than they beg for material things. They understand that presence cannot be bought, only given freely. It is not about quantity but quality, not about how many hours are spent together, but how deeply those hours are lived. Presence is the rarest gift because it requires more than effort. It requires intention. To be present, a man must choose to put away distractions, to prioritize connection, to step fully into the moment with her. It is not flashy or dramatic, but it is unforgettable. For women, presence is proof that they matter, not just in passing, but deeply and consistently. It is the gift that transforms relationships, turning ordinary time into extraordinary connection, and it is the position they beg for most because so few men truly give it.